What is today? July, I lost track of it. Yeah. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you here. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Goleta City Council, a special meeting of January 12th, 2026. Okay, if you'll all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can have roll call, please.
Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Here.
Councilmember Kasdan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Prodi.
Here. Okay, if we can introduce our Spanish translators, if they could come up and introduce themselves.
I have a brief bilingual message to share with everyone. Tengo un mensaje breve bilingüe. Happy New Year, feliz año nuevo. Nada más para dejarles saber que tenemos interpretación simultánea entre el inglés y el español disponible para esta reunión. Si gustarían escuchar, participar en español, tengo algunos auriculares disponibles para que lo puedan hacer. Pueden alzar la mano o me pueden dejar saber. Estaremos en el cuarto lateral en cualquier caso de pregunta que tengan. So, Happy New Year, just to let you know that we have simultaneous interpretation available between Spanish and English for today's meeting. So if you'd like to follow along, participate in Spanish, we have some listening devices available for you to do so. You can just raise your hand, come up to me, or we'll be in the side room for the entirety of the meeting, available for any questions that you may have. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to everyone. Our first meeting of 2026. Okay, at this time we'll have public forum on anything that the speakers would like to speak about that pertains to this jurisdiction. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, for those of you on the Zoom webinar, please use the raised hand icon if you would like to speak to a non-agenda item. I'm seeing no hands and I have no speaker slips, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, amendments or adjustments to our agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have any amendments. There's only 2 items on the agenda, but I'll just remind the council that we do have a planning commission meeting at 6, so we're going to try to shoot for an hour for this meeting, so we have some transition time for staff to turn around and set it up for planning commission. And then, of course, there's just the 2 items on the agenda. One is on consent from the Public Works Department, and then the main item is the item that we'll get into. But if the council or the public wants to comment on the consent item like we always do, you can certainly do that, and Public Works is here.
Okay, I'll do my very best to move things along this evening. Okay. First item.
That is item A1, letter of credit for San Jose Creek Multipurpose Path Project.
Okay. Any council member would like to pull this item? Not seeing any. Do we have any speakers for this item?
Those of you on the Zoom webinar, please use the raised hand icon if you'd like to speak to this item. I'm seeing none, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Someone like to make a motion? Make a motion.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Aye.
Councilmember Kasdan.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Yes.
And Mayor Prodi.
Aye. Ayes have it. It's not showing up, but ayes have it. Okay. Moving on.
That brings us to our discussion action item. That is item B1, FIFA World Cup 2026 Team Base Camp Host City Agreement.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll do a brief staff report on this one. I know that's not very typical, but every now and then I got to, jump into the game and still, keep sharp. Can't have the staff do all the work. So this opportunity that's before the council tonight came to us just before the end of the year. Councilmember Reyes-Martin and I were invited to a meeting mid-December or maybe towards the latter part of December, but certainly before the holidays. And some people in the room who I'll introduce in a second were on this Zoom meeting, and we then received a presentation, kind of a nice PowerPoint presentation on the World Cup that is coming up in the United States in June, and kind of the way the organization for the logistics and planning of it works, and then the opportunity for host cities for base camps for teams. There already are 16 host cities for the games. I read somewhere that this is the biggest one yet. There's 48 teams. There's going to be like 104 games across 16 cities all across the United States, maybe a little bit in Canada, in Vancouver, also in Mexico. But then the 48 teams need a place to kind of camp out while they're waiting for their games. And so early on, I think a lot of planning went into that to market potential facilities and sites for teams to choose from themselves and give them the ability based on if they were playing West Coast, middle of the country, what have you. I think this goes back quite a while. But fast forward to this past December, I think there was still scrambling going on by some teams to find their base camps. Maybe some had already found base camps, but an opportunity came up here in Goleta, that Goleta with some partners would make a great base camp. And so Jaime, maybe if you could put up the first slide, I can explain what I think will become obvious in a second, why our area is such a nice area for a base camp for a country traveling here. And these slides are slides that were loaned to me by UCSB, and I'll get to that again. I'll get to the guests that are in the audience in a second. But here you're looking at a slide that was probably used as some kind of a marketing brochure to teams, like, hey, this would make a great base camp. And so what was being proposed is that a team would stay at the Bacara, and you can see the picture of the Bacara on the bluffs of the ocean in Goleta, beautiful shot. And then they would practice at Harder Stadium, the shot right below there. And then, of course, upper left, the Santa Barbara Airport, which is a wonderful airport managed and operated by the city of Santa Barbara, actually not in the city of Goleta, but very close to UCSB, very close to the Bacara, and surrounded by the city of Goleta. And then I guess if the players have any spare time, they probably won't. They can get out and play golf at Sandpiper Golf Course. But the proposal was that the base camp essentially takes place during the entire month of June. So they need a hotel, they need comfort, they need practice facilities, they need team rooms, media setup, they need everything. And so again, I think logistics of traveling to their games through in and out of an airport are important. Safety is important. A nice hotel is important. A really premier practice facility with all the amenities is really important. So you can see how Goleta sold really well. But fast forward to today, we have some folks here from Visit Santa Barbara, Kathy Janega-Dykes, also Vanessa, who I've just recently met. And Vanessa, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, Bechtel, I think. Yes, okay. Who I've spent a lot of time talking with over the last 3 weeks, actually. They're the ones who brought this to our attention, and with Councilmember Reyes-Martin, our rep on Visit Santa Barbara, that was the connection there. And so we were just so happy that they did bring it to our attention, and so that we could say, yeah, let's see what the council and the community thinks about this, because it seems like such a cool idea. And then Johnny Whalen's is in the athletic department at UCSB. So he's been involved. I think he's been working on this nonstop for several months, probably a big deal for UCSB to be able to use Harder Stadium for this. So I've been talking to this group and others quite a bit as this whole thing has come together. So that's the kind of the setup and the story on how we got here. As you know, we had the holidays. The council went dark between mid-December and January 20th, so that presented some logistical challenges for us and whether or not this would even work. But it did come down to FIFA granting us an extra week. They initially wanted a decision of whether or not we would be a host city, or all host cities apparently, and apparently there's some wiggle room there, by January 7th. And given that we just didn't have much time, that was looking like it was going to be very challenging, especially with the council not meeting. But they did give us the extra week. Some negotiations were going on. an opportunity came up for us to ask them, would you give us another week? And with that, we scheduled this special council meeting so that you guys could weigh in and the community could see all this and have an opportunity to see it as well. So in this, I'll go through the staff report a little bit, and if you could flip to the next slide, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself on the venue, Jaime. Yeah, this is another shot of Harder Stadium and all the facilities they have. They have rooms, locker rooms, et cetera, et cetera. So I just thought I'd show that. This was, again, used to show to teams that this was a good facility for a practice facility and a home base. Next slide. And the Ritz-Carlton also has been a partner in this. They've been talking with lots of different teams. Still unknown who this team might be and if it works out, but they also had to, talk to teams about, reserving rooms. We're talking about June, and it's really important for them to know if they're going to have commitments to rooms and stuff way out in the future, and this is a big deal for them as well. And then last slide, this really gets to the importance, I think, of how this area works so well. Got the Ritz-Carlton, about a 10, 12-minute drive to Harder Stadium. They actually will not go quite the way shown on here because there is construction going on there. So they'll probably go down El Colegio. Anyway, I timed it myself. It's 11 minutes. And I was not driving that fast. And then you have the airport just sitting right there. And of course, beautiful city of Goleta, the environment for this whole thing. So pretty awesome. What FIFA requires is 3 agreements. They require an agreement with the practice facility, in this case, UCSB. In lots of instances, that facility might be controlled by the city. So it might be a dual agreement on being a host city and a facility. In this case, we got 3 different things going on. We got, FIFA wanting an agreement with UCSB to use the facility for a month. We have the Bacara wanting to enter into an agreement for what they can provide, what they can commit to the team for a month. And then FIFA does require this city host agreement for kind of everything else. And that's the agreement that is before the council tonight. And it has requirements for the city. And so I'll go through those briefly, and we did list them out on page 2 and 3 of the staff report. And I do think that's the last slide. Is that the last slide? It's not Jaime. So this is a template agreement. Again, we saw it for the first time right before the end of the year, but we did have time to review it. Our city attorney had as much time as he was granted to review what became like a 200-page agreement or something like that. And things were moving quite fast. But on page 3, you can see some of the requirements, making sure the team can get safely to and fro from their hotel to the facility. If we need to help with the roads, signage, direction, make sure they don't get lost. Obviously, that's stuff we can do. We have public works crews that can do all that kind of thing. If there's unique parking requirements, we can be really flexible. Like if they can't find a place to park a bus, would we allow them to park it at City Hall? Yeah, of course we would. That's easy. So there's things like that we can do. But I will call your attention to safety and security. I think that was the one that jumps out the most. They obviously want a safe base camp for all teams, and it's a big deal, and there's lots of requirements that come along with that. So this is something that we paid a lot of attention to, and we certainly, when we bought the extra week, were able to make a few changes that they agreed to. Essentially, we're required, and you can see the language in there, to commit to safety while the team's in our city. And primarily, I will say, you can imagine that that's kind of to and from. So when they're on the Bacara property, there's certain security that comes with being at that hotel. When they're on UCSB's property, they have a separate agreement, and UCSB has made certain commitments about providing security while they're practicing at their facilities. But they do have to get back and forth. I assume they'll be in a bus, and specifically in the agreement, they do require an escort, a police escort for that. So that's the biggest thing that will jump out, I think, as something that will certainly cost money and certainly is a commitment on our behalf. But it's beyond just the escort. There's other subtle commitments in there, and if there's questions about that, I can answer. Isaac is pretty familiar with some of the more subtler commitments that we just have to pay attention to. We just, to some degree, just don't know what we don't know here. There's not a lot of wiggle room with this agreement. FIFA was kind of, this is our template, take it or leave it. And there wasn't a lot we could do, and we certainly talked to some of our other cities that we know that are doing this to find out similar things, that it was kind of take it or leave it. If you want to do this, this is the agreement. Some positives that happened in the last week, I would say, was at one point the agreement we saw was going to be between the city and FIFA. I don't know if that's a bad thing. There's probably some positives to that. But as it turned out now, it's between the city and the actual country, the team, whoever that might be. And so down the road, when it comes to certain requirements, there is no doubt there's language in here. It's FIFA's contract that, it's their requirements, and they're going to certainly watch out and make sure that this meets certain safety protocols that they may have. But I think when the devil gets in the details, and we're getting closer to June, and we're asking the country, does this work for you? Does that work for you? Should it come up? I think it's going to be happening that way. And so I wanted to point out what I think is the most important section in the safety sections. That's 7.2. They do require us to prepare and submit a safety and security plan. So we will do that. I think it's going to be really important for us to think about that and put our best foot forward on why this community is safe and why a plan that we put together will work for them. And we will submit that, and I have no doubt that we'll get agreement on that, and that will have details on scheduling, and we'll have excerpts of our sheriff's contract and the resources that we have at our disposal, how we will escort them back and forth, when they need to get to the airport, and so forth and so on. So I think that's really important, and that section alone gave me more confidence that, hey, there's a lot we don't know here, but we have some room to put our best foot forward, and I think it'll all work out. So let's see. So we got some changes, like I said. It's with the country. Those were two really important things that were a little touch and go, but we got those in there. And then here we are today. So I want to go back to page 1, the recommendations. There are 3. One is to authorize the city manager to execute the contract, and I will note in that recommendation there is some wiggle room that if there's a few minor things that need to be changed, that Isaac and myself have the authority to make those changes after tonight. Probably not going to happen. Like I said, it's a template. We already put our best foot forward with FIFA. If we went back with one more thing, it's not clear that we would get that. But if there's typos, if there's things that we have to change, we would want that authority after today, but it's pretty much locked the way you see it. And then recommendation B, we did have to make a stab at a dollar amount that this might cost the city. So it does say in the staff report this is an estimate. I would caveat that. I don't know if I would qualify it as an estimate. We do great work estimating costs here at the city. We estimate construction projects. I mean, that's what we do all the time. In this case, there are so many unknowns that at best I would say this was kind of an allocation of costs, worst case scenario, because we just don't know. But we do have to start somewhere. We do know that we have to escort them back and forth every day. We can kind of estimate that. We can kind of estimate, miscellaneous. We can kind of but some things it's just hard to know. So I can certainly ask questions about that. We don't need the money tomorrow. If the council wanted to acknowledge that there's going to be costs and wait for the appropriation, I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily. We're probably not going to start incurring costs till April or May. We'll be back with the third quarter review. So there's time. I think there's some options there, but our thought was, to come forward with our best foot forward, allocate the funds so we could be ready to go. But certainly if there's questions about that, we will do our best to answer just our feeling about trying to be conservative on what it might cost, and then we'll know more later. And then finally, recommendation C is that this is not a gift of public funds. Of course, that's a law that governs us, and we feel, and certainly we'll take questions or hear from the council or the public about just kind of the benefits of being a host city. I mean, this is a really cool opportunity. It comes across that way. There's economic benefits, goodwill for the community, good partnerships. So there's a lot of kind of subtle and not so subtle things why this is just kind of pays off in a lot of different ways, but it's very hard to put a dollar amount on it. But anyway, if we were to expend that much money, we want the council to adopt the finding that this is a good use of public funds. So those are the three recommendations before you today. I do think I have covered everything, but we're happy to take questions. And like I said, we have our partners here. If you have questions for them, they might be inspired to speak. Again, it's been really great working with both of them and the Bacara as well. I've been in numerous telephone calls and meetings with all of them kind of over the holidays and as this started to come together. So I think they're pretty excited about it. So if they're excited, they can certainly speak when you provide that opportunity.
Okay, council, I'm sure we all have questions. Councilmember Kasdan.
Yeah, first, as far as lodging, we can do our part. We have a couch, and we can take one person. And I think the mayor has
I have
a
a
spare
few rooms.
room, and I think we can really pull it together. And as far as escorting, if they want us to we could take either our Subaru to help escort them, or we have a Nissan, and either one is fine. We're happy to help out. Okay. I guess I would be more, it seems, number one, that there's a ton of uncertainty, both as far as the costs that we might incur and as far as any grants or any sort of cost sharing or funding that might be available from our partners. And so, I guess for me, I'd be sort of more comfortable by appropriating something like $50,000.
Councilmember Kasdan, is your microphone on?
Oh, no,
Oh,
it's not.
thank you.
Thank you. I'd be more comfortable appropriating something like $50,000 at this point now, and then in the third quarter, fourth quarter, when we do our financial review, then to evaluate where we stand. But I wouldn't want to sort of unilaterally assume that we're going to have all of these expenses or send a signal that we're expecting to spend all of this money for anyone who might be looking, that we've set aside this for their expenses, but that, we're going to, that $50,000 is an amount we have, and we'll do what we can to offset any additional expenses. So that would be my suggestion. Does that sound reasonable then, City Manager, according to what you?
Well, like I said, I mean, this was an allocation so that, we can follow our normal processes. When we expend money, we have to have a budget for it, and this is something that obviously none of us knew of when the budget was put together. So it came from that position. But yes, in terms of how we do things, we quite frequently do budget amendments, and we do make changes when we need to. And we try to do them at mid-year. We try to do them like when the quarterly financial reports come to the council each time, and those things do happen as we go. So it's not unusual with our public works projects. We come back and add money, even though we know that the total cost is going to be more. So what you're proposing, doesn't preclude us from moving ahead with the agreement. And the point was to just disclose kind of like the possibilities of costs and where funds might come from. But in terms of the mechanics of allocating the money, yeah, it could be done later.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Carriaco.
So a lot of what's governing this process is boilerplate language provided by FIFA, correct? Fair assumption, okay. Is there a boilerplate formula or minimum deposit amount that FIFA anticipates a host base camp city to provide in situations like this? I just want to make sure, they don't look at a particular dollar amount and go, oh, well, they're not serious, or that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that with necessarily like, my expectation of a dollar amount or the highway in mind, but I just wanted to figure out, like, did we get any language from FIFA of like, these are generally such and such investment, this kind of money? I'm guessing the answer is no, because I think it would have been in the staff report, but I figured I'd ask.
Councilmember Carriaco and council members, actually, we did get a little bit, but I'll be honest, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it, and I'll tell you why. The agreement is very template-y to the point where, this form was probably in one way or another also used for the cities that have the stadiums. I'm sure, and the attachment to this agreement, which has to be incorporated by reference, is mostly having to do with the cities that have the stadium. So that was another kind of a sticking point initially. We got a copy of the agreement. It was about 30 pages long. We're like, okay, some things in here we don't like, but what's this other document? And they're like, oh, we'll get you that. Don't worry about that, though. And they finally did, and I heard it's like 150 pages long, but for the most part, it doesn't pertain to us. So there was a lot of stuff like that assumed bigger cities. It assumed that the practice facility was in the city, the same city. And, every situation's unique. And so from the second we started having these conversations, I'm like, okay, this is unique. The Bacara is in the city. The airport is in the city of Santa Barbara. And the practice facilities on a UC campus, which is slightly outside the city in an incorporated area. And there are phrases and so forth in these agreements that just don't fit that, and we're going to have to work this stuff out. So yeah, they had, and this kind of came to me third hand, by the way, some estimates for other cities, but I quickly realized, like, it's not that helpful. I mean, again, we're pretty good at estimating costs here. We know how much a police officer costs. We know how much our staff costs. We're good at promoting events, and we do it. And so a lot of it just was not that helpful, to be honest with you. And so I took it with a grain of salt, and we went the path we did with, hey, there's some things we know and a lot we don't know. Let's just kind of use our best intuition to start with an amount and go from there.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to go back to one of the things that you were discussing, which was the safety clauses and those requirements. And I think one of the challenging things about this situation is the hotel in question is located right next to a public beach, and there's public beach access. And so I just want to make sure before we go too far down the road of creating a safety and security plan and trying to estimate how much we're going to spend. Like, are we accounting for providing security at like the Haskell's parking lot and the path to the beach that's not on Bacara property? Because I could see there being an expectation that people would want to close off that lot temporarily while the team is out doing things. And I just want to make sure that in our rush to provide a really cool thing for the community, we don't cut off other things from our community, like access to our one beach.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember Carriaco and members of council. It's a great question. And yes, we did think of that. So first part of the answer, one of the meetings I attended was with staff from the Bacara. And at that particular meeting, safety came up, and they were, in a sense, kind of pitching the safety of their own facility. And so it was really interesting to hear some of the comments they made about their own facility, the security they have, the ability they have to put large groups into special villas where they're isolated from other populations, and so forth and so on. So I say that because this is related to your question, and I'll get there, but it was through that where some of the unknowns in here that we were concerned about, like how broad the requirements were for us to kind of show that the BCARA was safe, started to give us some confidence when we understood that the agreement that the BCARA was going to have with whoever the team is, they're going to be providing a lot of that, and that then lessens the ability on us, especially just the geographics of the hotel that you're aware of. It's a half mile to get in. You can only one in and out. It's got the ocean buffer on one side, railroad and the highway buffer on the other side, et cetera, et cetera. But through that, that was some of the language we got massaged. So that language was just a little too open-ended for our like, and we did get them to change our requirements. In the version you see now is the change we got, where we added something to the effect that our requirement is only on land that the city control. I think the words we used were responsible, accountable, and control, or something like that. And the beach, we had the beach in mind on that, actually. So yes, we don't control a lot of land around the BCARA. I mean, the road going in is ours. Everything else is private. But the beach is, but it's also under the control of the Coastal Commission. We can't close that beach without the Coastal Commission weighing in. So we feel pretty confident about that.
Okay.
And yes, we
Yeah,
do not
you
want to
answered my question.
close that beach.
Okay, thank you.
Just because a team staying.
And then one last question, is Visit Santa Barbara available for questions? Yes. Okay, could you come up? Yes. So a World Cup team, as I'm thinking, it's about 26 players on a roster. I'm guessing the entourage of coaches and advisors and trainers and everybody's maybe equal to that. So we're talking basically about a 50-ish reservation for about a month, which from a transient occupancy tax standpoint, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, Goleta hotels like the BCARA, but others also pay into a tax that goes and helps to ensure that there's marketing and promotion of the region, including Goleta. So my question is, can you just talk a little bit about how some of that money is going to be used to help promote what's happening to potentially have this base camp in Goleta, assuming this all goes forward? It looks positive. It looks encouraging. What are your plans to make sure that the word gets out about this in the community?
Good question. First of all, Happy New Year, everyone. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Kiriakou, again, my name is Kathy Janega-Dykes. I'm President and CEO of Visit Santa Barbara. I'm joined by my colleague, Vanessa Bechtel, who is our Chief Strategy Officer. And for the real-specific questions about players, I need to defer to Johnny Whalen with UCSB, because I love soccer. I just don't know enough about the details. And I think Mr. Nesbitt gave a great overview of this agreement. Our apologies for bringing this to you at the last moment. Literally, this has come up within the last week. So we have been working fast and furiously to try to get this together. And I think to your point, Council Member, is there's really a couple of benefits. First, it's the tangible benefits, the direct spend in the community. So this is about a $1.5 million contract, I think, for the Ritz-Carlton that does not take into account the addition of media that will be traveling to the area and friends and family that will also be following the team. And we are expecting that they will be staying at Goleta hotels near Harder Stadium as well, too. But I think more importantly, it's really these intangible benefits that raises the profile of the city of Goleta and really puts it into a different league. And we're already hearing from FIFA, from other teams that have said, oh, you need to go look at Goleta and UCSB because they have such great facilities. So for us, it's about the immediate benefits, but it's more also for long-term benefits. Our goal is really trying to bring more of these high-profile events coming into the area. And then shortly after FIFA, of course, we have the Olympics that will be held down the street and opportunities to try to do more with that. And in fact, another example of a high-profile event is coming here to UCSB in 2 weeks. It is the Women's National Soccer Tournament and they're actually staying at Goleta Hotels as well, too. So again, direct benefits. So you're absolutely right. There is that direct spend and certainly the TOT that will be generated from that. But I think for us, we're looking at more long-term benefits. And I'm going to defer to.
I have the other one.
Okay.
So I heard a Bacara representative at one point said they were ready to block out around 65 rooms.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And-
Your estimate was pretty close.
Oh, cool. And then I guess the other piece of it is just, it's Visit Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
But it has Goleta Hotels, and we're getting the direct spend. But, what are the plans for messaging
Yes.
and marketing this?
Yes.
Is it going to be come to Santa Barbara to see whichever team it ends up being?
Yeah.
Practice and do other things.
And that's a very important question to ask. We are also required to conduct some marketing as well, too, and I'm just trying to see if Vanessa or Johnny has any information on that, too. I think all of this is still unfolding, so I don't have all of the details yet, but there will be, in fact, some marketing opportunities, and there will have to be marketing opportunities down the road.
Thank you.
too.
I think it's just important, not just because the city's contemplating putting some
Right.
money out, but also because the TBID money,
Yes.
the Business Improvement District money that's collected from Goleta area hotels. I want to make sure that those hotels are getting some bang for their buck, because
Yeah.
really those are their dollars. We're responsible for ensuring the program is administered properly and fairly. And so I feel like it's an important part of our oversight role to make sure that there's that reinvestment of those funds, to benefit the Goleta hotels too.
And another example of that is I'd referenced the women's tournament match that's coming up in a few weeks. So we actually have worked closely with the Goleta hotels and then also used UCSB to put out press releases promoting the events as well too, using the name Goleta.
Okay. All right. I'm good for now. I'll
Okay.
probably have more questions later.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Oh, thank you. Let's see, I have two questions. One is, so my understanding is that there would be sort of at least 3 agreements, one with the city of Goleta as the host city, one with UCSB as having control over the stadium and the facility, and one with the airport authority. I don't know if staff has given thought, is it anticipated that any one of these entities would be sort of the lead? I guess to the extent that maybe in other communities, this might all fall under one entity or only 2. I don't know if there's any thought to that.
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Smith. And I don't understand for sure that there is an agreement with the airport. There may or may not be. I'm just not aware of that. The 3 agreements that I'm aware of is the host city, UCSB, and Bacara. At some point, they certainly want to make arrangements with the airport. They may be flying in on private planes. I don't know. But on the so on your other question, we're it's a 3-headed partnership. I could certainly make the case that we're most important. We're the host city, but it doesn't work without all 3. So the Bacara is a wonderful hotel, and who wouldn't want to stay there? And how relaxing when you're practicing and getting ready for your games. The facility that UCSB is providing, and they all knew about this and were negotiating this before it came to us. But our agreement is the host city agreement, so I think if the council chooses to do it tonight, we should go all in, and be a host city and kind of roll out the red carpet if that's something we want to do and show ourselves off.
And Mayor Pro Tem Smith, I did want to note the agreement that Mr. Nisbet mentioned earlier that's incorporated by reference to 2026 FWC hosting requirements does contemplate that the airport authority would be a contracted party. It's not something that came up in the city's negotiation, but it is sort of listed within that document as one of the potential contracting parties. So I think the best assumption would be they would be entering into a standalone agreement.
Okay, thank you. And then I don't know, I love soccer. I grew up playing soccer. I don't know if there's been any, but I admit my ignorance in terms of the potential countries that could be represented in the World Cup. I just don't know if there's been given any thought to whether or not any particular country could have any potential controversy linked to it in some way that may require more security than another country.
Yes, great question. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Smith. We thought about that for sure. And as written in the agreement and in the staff report, this is simply an agreement for us to be considered to be a host city, and we may not be a host city, and we don't know what team we're going to get. But we were certainly, when we were trying to estimate security costs, that certainly was a factor. And it also was part of the factors in us being really hard to estimate a cost for the council. But yeah, I could certainly make the case that some countries, for a variety of reasons, might have different challenges. They might bring larger crowds with them. They might, for some reason, have some controversy going on where that could lead to a protest or something, and we would have to provide security and manage that. So that is certainly one of the unknowns at this point, and so very good question.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Councilmember Reyes-Martin. Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's here. I know you've all been working really hard on all of this. A lot of my questions have been asked, but I did have a question about just in terms of the timing, and maybe this is for Mr. Whelan. I would imagine potentially one of the sticky areas around that time of year is commencement in terms of managing traffic and flow. Is that correct? Is that going to overlap? And have you thought about how to manage that? Or to anyone?
And please come up to the microphone, Johnny, so everyone can hear you.
It's great to see you all and meet many of you for the first time. My name is Johnny Whalen. I have the privilege of working with UCSB Athletics. On behalf of Kelly Barsky, our athletic director, we just say thank you. This process has been an amazing learning experience for all of us. And I think one of the reasons that we're at the doorstep of having a team commit here is because of the collaborative nature of what we've been as a community. One of the things that UCSB Athletics really prides ourselves in is community involvement. And I think we have a long-term plan here in collaboration with you and with Visit Santa Barbara and with BACARA and others to have teams come for years to come, not just this summer. We hope the U.S. Women's National Team comes back for another game. We hope to have a team here in 2031 when the Women's World Cup is in town in the United States. And we have a vision that we hope can be a collective one and that we can be amazing partners together to bring the world to Goleta. And just to answer your question specifically about the potential of there being some challenges during graduation week, we've thought about it. We were working with our on-campus partners to address that, how to make it as minimal impact as possible. I think the good news is that the city of Goleta won't have any hotel rooms available anywhere, but maybe that creates some short-term challenges. I'd like to address two things specifically while I am here at this moment. One is that we've made a conscientious decision at UCSB that we will not host a team that has any controversial elements to it. And we've actually made that clear to FIFA, and we would make it clear to anybody that our answer is no. So while I want to reassure you all of that, I just want to reemphasize it. Secondly, I'd like to just make one comment, given what I know about bed spaces that will be used. As it's been alluded to, the BACARA Hotel will have 65 rooms, but we also know there will be about 50 to 60 separate media members coming, And we also know there will be at minimum 50, if not 100, if not more family, friends, and VIPs that will be coming. So that collective grouping will create wonderful sources of revenue in the region and hopefully be a great asset. So, but to answer your question specifically, there will be some congestion, but we'll try to make it as minimal as possible during the week of graduation.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for your responses to the other questions that have been asked. That's really appreciated. I think it is really challenging to know in terms of how much funding to authorize at this point, given there are so many unknowns. I feel pretty confident that on the pure security kind of escort costs, based on what I've heard from staff, that authorizing a not to exceed of around 100,000, I think would cover that. And then I think everything else is the unknown. Are there going to be community events or other kinds of things? I mentioned in one of the meetings that I was part of that I've had the opportunity to attend a World Cup many years ago. And I do recall there being things like teams would have like a fan signing event, or they do a photo op with, kids soccer teams or kids in, a lot of these very feel-good kind of community serving events. I think none of that has really been talked about yet. That's still probably to come. And I think those are some of the things that are probably potentials. And there's, probably a role for the city to promote that or help set it up, and there's costs associated with that, which is exciting. This is a global event that has a huge viewership globally, and it will, our local community will be exposed to it and might, tune in to follow the World Cup when maybe in the past they hadn't, because there is this connection to Goleta. So I think, if we're getting to the point of talking about that, the funding authorization, maybe it's somewhere in the middle of where Councilmember Kasdan mentioned. I would support the 150 that staff has presented. I'd feel probably a little more comfortable at this point with not to exceed of 100,000, and then have staff come back, as things get fleshed out a little bit more, or you realize that there are additional public safety costs that need to be accounted for, or there are other opportunities for the city to get plugged in with that would necessitate an additional allocation, then I think it's appropriate to bring that back. That's kind of where I am, but it is really exciting, and I do think that it's a great opportunity to build from this for future events. It may not even be future athletics-related events. It could be any number of other things. So I'm really grateful for all the folks who've been at the table to talk through this and how we all work together to accommodate an event like this. I think is exciting. And I do hope, I know Councilmember Kiriakou mentioned this, I do hope that to the greatest extent possible, it really is Goleta that is highlighted. And that with any of these other events that they're really community serving, and that we are really just positively highlighting this partnership and this beautiful region. So thank you.
Well, I'll be really quick because a lot of questions have already been asked and answered. But I thank you for mentioning, Councilman Reyes-Martin, the idea of community involvement. Do we have any idea if the organizers would support, we don't know at this point, probably support the community come and watch a training? I mean, how exciting would that be? That's when you're truly giving back to the community, when you do something like that. Otherwise, we're just transporting and, accommodating, but what's in it for the community?
This is Johnny Whalen again speaking. What I'd like to just mention is we have a very strong relationship with a federation that we're in touch with daily. And that federation, that national team's commitment is to be great partners with us. And while I can't speak specifically to whether it'll be an open training session or not, I do know that there will be an emphasis from the UCSB side of things in relationship with the BACAR and in communication with you and Visit Santa Barbara, to have the community be able to benefit from this. And I think about the schools, I think about the youth soccer programs, and you'll see this in a couple of weeks, even when the U.S. Women's National Team is here in town. It would be a mistake for us to have a team that doesn't have its fingerprints in the community. And one of the things we've been asked by this specific team is, would the community embrace us? Will they be willing to support us as their quote-unquote second team, because the U.S. is assumed to be the first? But our answer is always yes. This is a soccer community. This is a community where families can be a part of this and our partners. And so we have full intentions of having that from the UCSB side of things, and trying to make some level of community benefit with the people that are in the region. So.
Well, thank you for that. I know it's probably too soon to ask this question, but have we talked with our sheriff's department? Do we know the capability? Are they interested?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we did reach out to
Good.
them. The first time we reached out to them, Mr. Valdez reached out to them right before the holidays. And that first reach out was more as we were all going into the holidays. Hey, this just hit us. Want to put it on your radar. Can you at least start thinking about this? But more to come. And then we also had a conversation with our new police chief this week about the more to come and putting together the safety plan. So not a lot of details, but yeah, we obviously did not want to leave them out. And so we will be getting with them should the council move forward and working on that with them. But
Okay, thank you for that.
their response with with little information was positive.
Okay. I think that may be it for me. I'm wondering, did you have something?
Yeah.
And then we'll go to the public.
Okay. Well, actually, for Kathy, so May, June, as you know, our hotels are at capacity. And so I guess we want to be cautious before we say that that's 65 or other amounts of people who are staying are going to be additional revenue, because a lot of that will be displacing people who otherwise would have been staying there. I don't know what the net amount is likely to be of additional revenue, of additional people, but we are routinely at that time of year at capacity without this event.
Actually, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Caston, that's actually not correct. So June tends to be an interesting month, and I don't have those stats available. My apologies, I don't have that in front of me, but this is the reason why our Goleta hotels are really interested in this agreement as well, too, because it's not always the case. Summer travel doesn't really begin until late June, as we all are aware. A lot of times schools go into the second week of June, a third week. So a lot of that family travel really doesn't begin until late June or early July. And what we find is that June is also a soft month for our meetings and conferences, which typically meet at our larger resorts like the Ritz-Carlton as well, too. So this was a great opportunity for us to find, a group that would actually bring incremental business into the community.
Okay, well, one takeaway for me is I have to find better conferences that'll stay in the Ritz-Carlton as opposed to where I've been going. Okay, that's great, actually. No, wait. But that is terrific news, actually. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is that a lot of the benefit, as you've described, is regional. A lot of the benefit is that for the area, that this is a location that's good for future events and so forth. And I was wondering if, I know Visit Santa Barbara frequently has grants and other sorts of things for cities where it's going to be benefiting multiple jurisdictions. Just could you talk about what sort of opportunities there might be for funding from Visit Santa Barbara?
Councilmember Caston, I think a lot of our focus will be on the marketing of the event, as to what Councilmember Karaoke mentioned as well too. So that will be a large part of our efforts, working with our PR department, also with our marketing department, and making sure that we are promoting as much as we can about Goleta and UCSB hosting a FIFA team for training as well.
So for the potential costs then that are accrued, there was a list of things that were expenses that we anticipated. Some were security, although, as mentioned, we're ready to support them in our Subaru, that is.
Yeah.
But primarily, what you're saying is that the Visit Santa Barbara's would aim in terms of contribution, in terms of the marketing and promotion, and not so much in terms of the other elements that were listed in the future or potential expenses?
We would serve as your promotional arm. And I think, what was discussed before, there are two primary costs for safety and security at this point. And one is police escorts, and then the second one is security at the resort. And a lot of those costs still need to be finalized. The team does need to come to the area and conduct a risk assessment, but much of that won't be known, unfortunately, for a while. And I think what was also addressed at the beginning by Mr. Nesbitt, a lot of these template agreements are prepared for larger cities, whereas if there is a team staying, let's say in Los Angeles, they need police escort because they're going, from one part of the city and maybe 45 minutes or an hour to another part of the city. So the Goleta and UCSB relationship is a little bit different from what FIFA is used to working with. So much of that will just need to be, addressed as the team starts to travel here and conducts its risk assessment and really understands that the drive to UCSB is a very short drive and not a very long drive, and may not require as much as they need or as FIFA had originally requested.
So, that goes to, when I first saw 150,000, I was taken aback. And I guess I'm wondering, and I don't know who to direct this question to, maybe Mr. Nesbitt, maybe, I don't know. But it's such a short drive, and I imagine that for the most part, they're going during regular hours. It's not that they're, at 2 in the morning heading out. Or correct me if I'm wrong, if they decide to go to a club in Santa Barbara, are we escorting them? But I guess I'm wondering where those costs, have we had any conversations with the Sheriff's Department, for instance? Is it automatically overtime expenses for escorting on this route? What do we know at this point?
Yeah, Mr. Nesbitt, I think Johnny can answer a few of those questions
Okay, I'll
as
go
well,
first,
too.
and then,
So,
yes, certainly,
okay.
Mr. Whalens can come up as well. So Councilmember Kazin and council members, unfortunately, we just don't know a lot of details to answer your question. Those questions are exactly what we will work out when we put forth our plan. Again, the agreement requires us to put forth the plan. Our plan will tell them what we propose to do. And we will say we believe this will meet the requirements of the contract. So, some of your questions, it's just hard to know. We don't have the schedule. Do they do 1 practice a day, 2 practices a day? Do they go back to the hotel for lunch? So much of that we just don't know. But the requirements are escort to and from practice, to and from the airport. That much we know. And that's kind of why our estimate was, conservative. But to Kathy's point, there are lots of differences between the situation here and the example she gave in downtown LA. And so that's why we have some confident level that when When and if we do get a team, we'll be able to work out those details directly with the team as opposed to, through FIFA and be able to answer those questions.
And we don't have anything to, I don't know, give us some sort of, or perhaps you do, with respect to the sheriff's department, what they might consider part of our contract and.
Councilmember Kasdan, as I said, we've reached out to them to let them know that this is coming and that we will want to, should the council go ahead. I mean, what comes first? We couldn't start negotiating, hours and schedules for the month of June when we don't even know if we're going to have a team yet. So we put it on their radar, and those are conversations that Jaime and I will have with our sheriff department, and we'll work out those details.
Thank you. Did you have?
If I could just add one layer of detail, that the federation that would be here will arrive in early June. The exact date is still TBA. And they'll train here for approximately 4 or 5 days. And each of those days, they would train one time and go from the Bacara to UCSB and back. After that initial day of window of training, they would then fly to San Francisco for 48 hours or so, come back, another 4 or 5 day window here, then they would fly to the Midwest, back, and then one more time to the Midwest. And so the wonderful element, and this is why this team is interested in this region, along with the climate and the accommodations and training facility, is the distance away from everything is so close. So it gives them a chance for their players to not be traveling, to not be standing up and be able to get rest. So once their training session is over and they're back at the hotel, it is possible that their players or staff would like to leave the hotel, but those security responsibilities are no longer the city of Golitas. It would be the team taking their own risk or responsibility to ensure it. I've been in a number of communications with FIFA over this entire year. There's no chance City of Golitas is going to be responsible to bring their players down to State Street for a dinner or something like that. So I hope that information is helpful.
Thank
And
you.
Madam Mayor, just a reminder, maybe we have about 10 or 15 more minutes so we can have some time to get together to get ready for the Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you. I'm wondering
Thank
if we
you.
have anybody from the public. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Yes, I have no speaker slips. For those of you on the Zoom webinar, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. All speakers will have 3 minutes. I do have Marcos O. Martinez Diaz. If you please unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. I think most of y'all know me. I just wanted to tune in. I think this is a really exciting opportunity. I love soccer. I think it's very diverse. It's reflective of the community we serve in Goleta. I think it's a great opportunity. I know we talked a lot about the economic benefits, but I think more so the benefits that this could have to our community. If you've been paying attention to the news, a lot of this World Cup, especially in the US, many people are being priced out from having the opportunity to attend a game. So giving families here in Goleta the chance to see a team that's in the World Cup, see them train, I think that's really, really cool. And it's a great way to be inclusive and, just make regular people feel like they're a part of something really, really huge. I hope Visit Santa Barbara and UCSB are appreciative of the commitment of the city. I think this is, again, a wonderful opportunity. And yeah, I just really want to say my support of it. As a community member and working with people, that wouldn't be able to afford to go to a World Cup game, that this is really, really invaluable. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I have no more speakers for public comment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Back to council. Are we ready for someone to make a motion? Or do you want to deliberate a little bit more? Councilmember Carriaco?
As I've heard some of the questions getting answered, I'm I'm moving more towards that $100,000 number. And one of the reasons why, first of all, I mean, we don't know if the team that we get, if we get a team, is going to make it out of group or not. So I think there's just so much variation in the potential expense. But I think the longer they stay, the more opportunities there are for the community to be engaged in this. And I think about not just the public investment that we're being asked to make here. I'm also thinking about the public investment that's been made in our area. I mean, I think about all the money, all the public money and private money that went into those facilities out at the university. And I think anything that we can do as a community to squeeze more public value and community value out of not just the public funds that we're spending, but that others before us have spent, I think there's value in that. And then the public speaker talked about different communities that really embrace soccer and would be inspired by having that level of participation. And I think there's a lot of value in that. I think that can't be overlooked. And the last thing, and you know, Kathy Janka Dykes mentioned this, was that the compounding effect that you're getting with the other investments, having the women's national team coming out here. It's just an opportunity to build not just the expectation, not just the anticipation, not just the payoff from these other events, but then just how the word gets around in the sporting community that this is a great place to come. I'm old enough to remember when the Lakers used to come up here when one of their assistant coaches, Bill Burka, was a part-time resident of the area. And they would go to Santa Barbara City College and they would practice there before the playoffs started and during the off season. And that got a lot of people in this community excited about basketball. And I think anything that we can do to get people coming out here again for our children and youth and, you know, people that are children at heart, I think there's a lot of value in that. And so I'm really moving more towards our Visit Santa Barbara liaison, Luz Reyes Martin's comfort level with the 100,000. I would be more comfortable if we for sure used the COPS funds before we go into the general fund unassigned balance. I would like that unassigned fund balance to be higher than it is, but it is what it is. And overall, I think we're in pretty good fiscal shape, but I would prioritize those funds first. Just general direction. That's not part of my motion. That's not part of a motion or anything.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say before we go take a motion? Go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem.
I can take a stab at a motion?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I would move that we move approval to authorize the city manager to execute the attached team base Camp Host City agreement in substantially final form and as included as attachment 1, subject to any final negotiation considered in consultation with the city attorney between the city and a participating member association team that has been qualified to participate in the FIFA World Cup 2026 competition. And I'll make an amendment here to authorize the city manager to expend an amount not to exceed $100,000 for public safety, community engagement, and other appropriate uses related to the team base camp host city agreement, and appropriate $50,000 from the general fund unassigned fund balance to the city manager's department to supplement existing budgeted funds as described in the fiscal impact section, and C, find that the appropriation that I've just described and any future allocation to support the city obligations under the team base camp host city agreement is in the best interest of the city, serves a strong public purpose, and is not a gift of public funds. Specifically, any allocation of city funding in support of the team camp host city agreement will bolster the city's local economy and local businesses, among other Goleta strategic plan goals.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Okay, council members, please do lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes Martin,
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou,
Aye.
Councilmember Kasdan,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Parodi.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay. All right, thank you. There we go. Okay.
How much time do we have?
We have, we're done.
Should we wrap up now?
think we're over.
Madam Mayor, I think we should wrap up. I see planning staff
They
hovering
started in 5
outside. They
minutes.
do want to get, but is there anything else on the agenda before you adjourn?
I don't think so.
I just had a comment that I can I'll hold off for now.
Okay, and thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.